Hello, and welcome to my channel. So, I decided once more to do another reaction video. One of my friends shared this article with me, and I haven't read it yet, but again, it's another article about the Rings of Power series, which I like to call Lord of the Woke. And before I get started into this article and give my real time reaction as I go through it, I want to talk about a true story briefly, which is something I experienced when I was in my early 20s. And this whole situation with Lord of the Woke and the fan reaction reminds me of this event that I experienced. So, when I was in my early 20s, I had this dog and we used to like to go walking in the woods together. And I would just let him off the leash so that he could run around and look at what he wants to look at, and I could do the same. So we're in the woods and we're going along next to the stream, and he's on one side of the stream and I'm on the other. And he started digging in the ground, and all of a sudden, a cloud or a swarm of some black things rose up out of the ground, and he snorted, and then he backed off from whatever this was rapidly and kind of awkwardly and rather quickly as well. And that swarm spread really fast, and I got stung a few times. And I believe it was a hornet's nest. So that's kind of what is happening now. Basically, the expression of kicking the hornet's nest applies here. If you go and kick or stir up a hornet's nest, then you will be stung. And if you're not prepared to be stung, it's better that you don't interfere with that nest. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at this article. All right, so this article is on Yahoo. It comes from Variety. It was released 8/21/2022. It's called The Rings of Power to screen first 2 episodes in theaters ahead of series premiere. And we've got this picture of this orc thing here. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, my first experience with orcs was actually Warcraft way back in the 80s, the original Warcraft game. And prior to that, I'd never heard about orcs before. I was first exposed to Middle Earth when I was in middle school, like 7th or 8th grade. I think it was 8th grade. So I was a fan way before the Peter Jackson movies came out. I was a real original Tolkien fan. And when I discovered J.R.R. Tolkien for the first time, it was like encountering a sudden ray of light after having been in a dark tunnel for a while. It's like, oh wow, I didn't know something like this could exist. This is amazing. I was pretty harsh on the Peter Jackson movies when they came out because of a few things here and there. But in retrospect, they're not so bad as far as movie adaptations go, especially compared with what's going on right now. So let's continue on with this article. Here we go. Middle Earth may be going from film to television with Amazon's new series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Oh, so they did manage to get The Lord of the Rings included in the title. But it turns out that doesn't mean the franchise is done with the big screen. The show will screen its first 2 episodes at fan events across the world on August 31, 2 days before it makes its streaming debut on Amazon Prime Video. Fan event. Okay. I think they did this before, and they showed it to these so-called super fans who were not really fans at all. Tolkien fans don't act like that. They don't have that kind of mentality. So it was a totally fake, staged corporate event, which did not at all appeal to real Tolkien fans. And as a lifelong Tolkien fan, looking at this and seeing the kind of people there were in these commercials and the way they were talking, it was just like obvious propaganda, obviously fake. So let's continue here. Cinemark created a page for the one-night only event, with a note that tickets will become available on Monday 9 a.m. PT. The reservation also comes with a $10 snack voucher. The event is only available to Cinemark Movie Rewards members, the theater chain's two-tiered loyalty program, which includes a free subscription option. So basically, these are different corporations scratching each other's back. It's like they still haven't realized that they're trying to sell something that nobody wants. Nobody wanted this. So when I read, the first thing I read back in middle school was Hobbit. And when I read it, I thought this was amazing. It was something that felt very real and at the same time, a little bit like a nicer and more interesting place than the real world that we inhabit. I was just amazed by it, and I'm like, I've got to have more. So then I read Lord of the Rings. Then I read Silmarillion. Then, when I was in high school, I started getting into the expanded lore and the unfinished works, the histories of the Middle Earth, and I was a little disappointed because the histories are not something you can just sit down and read through if you want to enjoy a story, because what they are is earlier drafts and incomplete works. So there's not a lot of, it's not something that is a single story that you would just sit down and read. A lot of it's not finished, and then there's a lot of notes and stuff, but it's useful for people who want to understand what Tolkien did and get inside his thought process, which is something that I started doing when I was older. And one of the things is I was disappointed that there was not more. I always wanted there to be more work, more stories to read. But with him being dead, he's not in a position to write any more stories. And I would rather just not, whatever anybody does now is going to be their ideas, not his. So there's no point in it. If you want to have your own fantasy world with elves, dwarves, orcs, and whatever else, it's not hard to go and make up your own world and your own stories for it. It's very easy. In fact, I've done it myself. So, I should say, it's not hard for people that are capable of original thought and creativity. If you're not capable of original thought and creativity, then yeah, coming up with an original story is not something you can do. Just like if somebody's not good at math, then they're not going to be good at architecture and engineering because they're not going to be able to create a functional template for anything. So it's a similar kind of issue. All right, Cinemark created a page for the one night only event okay, I read that. So a one night only event, I'm wondering, I'm going to make a prediction. Very few people are going to sign up for this. They might have to actually pay people to come and see this, or they'll have to do another staged fake reaction like they did with their super fan thing that they did a while ago. Who were not fans of, by the way. Like, as a Tolkien fan, I can tell these people are not fans. They don't have the mentality or the interests that a Tolkien fan would. Granted, we are a diverse group, but we're not really like those people. Those people are SJWs, or they're just paid actors, or both. So, super fans indeed. I don't think so. So, but I'm wondering, maybe a few days from now, they decide to make it a week-long event instead of a one-day event because they're not able to generate enough interest. Let's see what happens. Okay, so let's move down. Outside of the US and Canada, Amazon will also screen the series in locations in the United Kingdom, Ireland, Argentina, Colombia, Australia, and New Zealand. Reports indicate that the fan event will unfold across roughly 200 locations globally. Again, they keep saying fan event. Who are the fans of this? because I wouldn't go to see it if they paid me. When I went and saw the Hobbit movie that Peter Jackson did, it gave me a splitting headache, which did not go away. I had to, until I got a full night of sleep and woke up the next day. But that splitting headache was with me the rest of the day. And there wasn't even any politics or anything morally objectionable or difficult to watch in the Hobbit movie. It's just that it was a bad movie and it was a terrible adaptation. So this is going to be even worse, because not only will it's looking like a really terrible adaptation, and it's going to be full of politics and probably some scenes that I just don't want to watch. Quite honestly, I don't want to watch any kind of intimate, like any kind of intercourse, much less any sort of LGBTXYZ content. Like if I know that's going to be there in advance, then I'll take a rain check in advance. It's a hard pass. So the decision to bring the Rings of Power to theaters, even if only for one night, represents a largely unprecedented push by Amazon for an upcoming program. The Lord of the Rings property comes with a very engaged fan base. It does, as you've discovered in the comment section and in the reactions to the videos. And as I was saying earlier, we would rather just, as a Tolkien fan, I would rather you just leave it alone. I'm not interested in anybody's sequels or redos of Middle-earth. I have no interest. If I really want a sequel so bad, I can write my own fan fiction, and if I write my own fan fiction, I won't put anything in it. 100% guaranteed there won't be anything in my own fan fiction which is repulsive to me. So I just will not be. I will not be seeing this. This is like a fan fiction written by people who aren't fans, who hate the fans and who hate the author. I mean, how many times have they called us racist, and all sorts of other things? I wonder who they expect to come and. I mean, the only reason for them to even attempt this from a monetary standpoint is if they're trying to tap into a built-in fan base. But from the very beginning, they've been insulting the fan base. So I don't know who they expect to come sit and watch this. I suppose no one. Maybe the source of revenue for this may not be viewers. It might just be investments from BlackRock or somebody, or Vanguard, for having a good ESG for having a good ESG score. I think this endeavor will probably raise the ESG score for Amazon, but it's not going to raise the fan reviews or the ratings at all. So let's continue. Amazon hopes to make a big splash with Rings of Power, which reportedly carries a production budget of more than 400 million. I thought it was over $1 billion. Seems like these stories are dipping into a different set of facts, or a different source. Okay, production budget of more than 400 million, and was described by Stuart Nash, New Zealand's Prime Minister for Economic Development and Tourism, as the largest television series ever made. Interesting. Amazon Prime Video will debut both of the first 2 Rings of Power episodes on September 2. Following the premiere, the series will switch to a 1 episode per week release format, debuting its remaining 6 episodes on each subsequent Friday. Who is going to watch it? I see what they're trying to do here. They want to put it in the movie theaters because they still think that there's, well, I should say they might still think that there's a lot of people out there who just show up to the theaters not knowing what they're going to watch, but they just go to watch a movie and then they buy a ticket for whatever poster catches their eye or whatever's available. I had an experience like that when I was in college where I got invited to see a movie with some guys that were on my floor. I said, "Hey, we're gonna go see a movie." I said, "What are you gonna go see?" "Oh, I don't know. We're gonna go see a movie." And I wasn't interested because I didn't know what they were going to see. But then they said, "Oh, well, we'll pay for your ticket." So I was like, "All right." And I went, and it was a very boring movie, which was just not good or interesting. And I believe I went one other time on a similar kind of expedition, and then I decided there's no point in going to the movie theater if I don't go for something specific. If I don't have something specific in mind, it's just a waste of time and money because most of the movies that are there are not things that interest me. And of course, that was before this great ideological push that was back in like the early 2000s. So my experience now is I don't go to the movies that often. It's been a very long time. But the last few times I've gone, there's almost nobody there. So I don't know who they're expecting to. I don't know what these people are doing, to be quite honest, or what they're putting their hopes in. But let's look at the comments here. I would go to see it for eye candy, not because I think it will make the Tolkien fan in me happy, but they restrict it to Cinemark Rewards members, so they've managed to offend me before I'd even have a chance to see their non-Tolkien money grab. Interesting. Oh yeah, so Cinemark Rewards members. So yeah, it seems like, okay, so I guess it's not something that people that just walk in would even be able to see. I really don't know what these people are trying to do here, to be quite honest. I'm not even going to watch it for free, let alone go somewhere and pay for it, says Jeff. And yeah, that's what I think that's my mentality as well. I won't go somewhere and pay for it or watch it for free. Um, if you never were, and then here Jim C says, if you never were a Lord of the Rings fan, why would you? Why would you? What? You are not a Tolkien fan. And here's the response. You are not a Tolkien fan and never will be able to convince anyone you are. You are just an extreme leftist playing politics, Jim C. All right. Let's look at some more comment. Will says, a very engaged fan base. Yeah, and that fan base is at least 75% very against this show. I would say the fan base is 100% against this show. At least, hardcore Tolkien fans. Maybe somebody who was just a fan of the Peter Jackson movies might be, and who never went beyond that, might be like, oh, cool special effects. I want to go see it. They might be thinking they're going to get more of those movies, those, something like the Peter Jackson movies, but they're not even going to do that with this. So anyone who's thinking that is in for a serious disappointment if that's what they truly are expecting. The memes are going to be huge. Huge. Annan says, hand-picked people to watch the show and give it false reviews just as they've been doing for the past 6 months. This isn't Lord of the Rings. It's a made-up show with many made-up characters using the name. Galadriel was never a warrior, never led an army, and many of the characters never even met. Enjoy. Yeah, that's right. I agree. Underneath, Red says, don't forget you're a racist if you don't like it. That's right. This word is just being applied to anybody that those in power don't like. That's pretty much what it means these days. If you are on the wrong side of those in power, then you're basically a racist. That's what you are. One woke show to one woke show to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. Yeah, that's true. And the interesting thing is when Tolkien talks about in his letters, the motivations of Sauron and Morgoth, their basic underlying motive is that they want everyone in the world to worship them. That's why they're trying to physically take over. So in the Peter Jackson movies, there's this one place, I forget where, or maybe it was in the commentary on the movies, but they had this idea that they're trying to wipe out, the Sauron is trying to wipe out humans. But that's not the case. He wants everybody to worship him. He might have been trying to wipe out the elves, but that's only because they're the most stubborn as far as worshiping him goes. So that's what it is. And in that way, it is kind of like Tolkien did not write allegory. He said very clearly that he hated allegory. But the cultural Marxists are very similar to Sauron and Morgoth in that they want everyone in the world to bow to what they bow to, basically. Yeah, there's definitely some overlap. Let's see here. I can't wait for them to give out replies of, we don't give numbers, when folks wonder how many actually went. Yeah, so I suppose, again, I don't understand why they're doing this the way they're doing. I really have a hard time understanding these people, because a lot of what they do is for show. Like, there's a difference between what they say their motives are and what their actual motives are. That's always the case. If you want to find out, when it comes to communists in general, if you want to find out what their motives are, look at the results of their actions, what happens as a result, and very likely that's the outcome that they're trying to achieve, not whatever outcome they say it is. But here they're acting almost like there's a built-in audience that's going to turn out for them. And I don't know how many people are in this rewards member thing, whatever it is. I don't know why anybody wants to go to the movie theaters today. Movies have really been in a continuous nosedive since, for at least the last 12 years, I would say. Maybe 15 years. There's just nothing it's all like remakes, sequels, prequels, and everything. Like almost everything is full of propaganda. So, and I don't know who's going to see. Theaters are having less people in them. How many people are actually going to be members of this Cinemark Movie Rewards? Especially now when people can't really afford food. I mean, if I had to choose between, I've got a gym membership. If I had to choose between a gym membership and any kind of subscription like this to an entertainment service, obviously the entertainment service is going to go because it's not necessary. And that's the thing, is there's no entertainment is, if it's good and relaxing, then it serves a positive function because it can help you calm down and put you in a better mood. And it can also engage your imagination and get you to think about things that you normally would not. It might even help your cognitive development a bit. But at the end of the day, it's not a requirement. Entertainment is a luxury. It's not necessary, and if people have less resources in general and they can't afford gas and food, they're definitely not going to pay for something, for some show or movie that they didn't even ask for and that they don't like. So, oh yes, and looking at this ugly orc image, I gotta say, the way that they made the orcs look in this Amazon thing looks like a knockoff of how they look in the Peter Jackson movies, but the way they look in the Peter Jackson movies is also wrong. I would encourage, I'm not going to spoil it because I don't really want to make this video go in this direction. You can look for yourself. I'm not, but the way that Tolkien described his orcs is not at all like what you see in this image here. So I would just encourage everyone to read the books and read the letters. If you are a Tolkien fan, you should read his letters. If you're somebody who likes to write sci-fi and fantasy, and you're wondering how Tolkien came up with his ideas, like his thought process and his motives, you really need to read his letters. There's some good and useful material in there. So seeing the way that, so I would say, to at best, this Lord of the Woke thing is a derivative of a derivative. I'm thinking that the staff at Amazon didn't really do any research or read the actual books or letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. I think they just maybe read some notes and perhaps watched the Peter Jackson movies, and they probably think that the Peter Jackson movies are flawed because they don't have enough diversity and they don't have any LGBTXYZ or modern day political messaging. So of course it's up to them to take that and make it even better. And I'm saying even better with finger quotes, which of course you can't see, but that's the situation. And I just don't think this is going to do well. I think the only benefit that Amazon will derive from this is that it will probably raise their ESG score, which maybe will get them some more investments if they need more investments from certain groups. But it's fans don't care about ESG scores. That's not going to win over, that's not going to bring in the fans, and that's not going to create new fans. And this whole idea, this releasing it to this, what's it called, Cinemark Movie Rewards members, seems like probably them working with this other group in order to both increase their amount of subscribers. But I would assume, or I imagine, that this Cinemark Movie Rewards members are a very small amount of people. I don't see how it's going to help them. I really don't. The logic of what they're doing here actually baffles me, to be quite honest. I really don't understand. I'm going to have to see what the outcome of this is. This series is not going to do well, and but one good thing about this is it might make other groups think twice before they decide to touch Middle Earth and anything else J.R.R. Tolkien has done. Like, you had better think twice if you want to just take his name and then use it as a vehicle to sell your own story. It's better if you just create some original work. And I think there is a demand, there is an interest in original content. It's just that I don't see any original content anymore coming either from Hollywood or from corporate entertainment. So I don't think I have anything else to say on this. I think that pretty much wraps it up. That's all I've got. Thanks for watching.